He wasn't playing like his normal.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to have a call to order, please. It's about 11 o'clock. Thank you for being here, everyone. I believe we have quorum here. I see 7 of us. Is there anybody else that we're missing that's supposed to be here? That you know of, anyone?
Bueller.
All right. Caitlin, could you do roll call, please?
Ryan,
Here.
Marcus,
Here.
Mike Hamner, William,
Here.
Jennifer,
Here.
Julie,
Here.
Caitlin, Emily, Matthew,
Here.
Mike Solomon.
Hear us. Mute himself.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next is approval of the agenda. Somebody to support that?
So moved.
Support.
Ryan,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Mike Hamner, William,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Caitlin,
Charging cord itself.
Emily, Matthew,
Yes.
Mike Solomon.
Yes.
All right, I see Marcus
can
has
you hear
stepped out. Is he going to join us?
How do you just leave a meeting?
Yeah, I ditched this.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes for January 15th, 2025.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 15th, 2025.
Before we proceed, if I could just make a quick comment, I'm wondering, I'm looking through this, and I didn't look at it until late last night. I don't see the most important section from last meeting. There was 2 board votes, and there was about a 15-minute discussion. The minutes don't list, from what I can see, the fact that we're not compliant with the EPA for the last 3 years. The minutes don't list the fact that we don't have a quality management plan and a well testing plan that's mandated in the EPA Kaiser report. The minutes don't list the fact that we had a unanimous approval for a $35,000 expenditure for the services of F&V, which is over 10% of our yearly budget. The minutes don't state the fact that we had a unanimous approval to waive competitive bidding because we're behind in compliance to the EPA, so we have to expedite. So I'm a little concerned that that section with 2 votes from the board is not in the minutes. So a possible opportunity for improvement.
I will withdraw that motion and with amendments, redo the motion.
Thank you, Joe.
I think you have it.
Are we
Well-
missing a page that didn't get printed out, guys?
That's what I'm wondering.
I think you have to name,
Pardon me?
I think you'd have to name the amendments, not just say with amendments. Like you'd have to list all of those things you just said.
Well,
Or maybe we table.
I'd have
this
a
until we
motion
get a full
to
set of minutes.
have the meeting minutes updated properly and approve them in March.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable? Do I have support?
So moved.
Would you like me to repeat what's not in the minutes, or what's the confusion?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
Marcus.
seconded your motion.
Thank you.
Ryan,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Can
Hamner,
we restate the motion?
William,
Can we restate that motion?
Sure. The motion is to add the EPA standard situation of being 3 years behind, the fact that we voted $32,000 expenditure to F&V, the fact that we had a unanimous vote to waive competitive bidding, and the fact that we don't have a quality plan, and the fact that we need to comply ASAP.
I thought that was the motion that I threw out there with the
Yes.
with those amendments.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I think the motion, as I understand it, is to delay the approval of the minutes until March when we can appropriately review the meeting minutes and then make an approval at that time.
Thank
Am
you,
I right?
Jen. That's correct.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Ryan,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Mike Hamner, William,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Caitlin, Emily, Matthew,
Yes.
Mike Solomon.
Yes.
Could I take a moment to ask for another motion that we can have our meeting minutes documented with potentially the same Roman numeral numbers that our agenda has so that we don't have this problem in the future? Can we do our meeting minutes in the fashion to replicate the agenda? Do I have support on that? Second?
Second.
Brian,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Mike Hamner, William,
Yes.
Jennifer, Julie,
Yes.
Caitlin, Emily, Matthew,
Yes.
Mike Solomon.
Yes, and just under discussion of that, if we're going to follow that format, we should probably put letters or numbers under each of the Roman numerals so that it's easily traceable.
Lastly, could we have a motion to have meeting minutes distributed to the board in a more timely fashion so that we can better have the information on our mind, so it's not 3.5 weeks later and we're trying to remember what we discussed? Is there a way that we could have those distributed, Caitlin, maybe in a more timely fashion?
Yes.
Okay, do I have support on that motion?
I would support that.
Second?
Brian,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Mike Hamner, William,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Caitlin, Emily, Matthew,
Yes.
Mike Solomon.
Yes.
Okay, sorry for that delay. Next is public comments. This is a session with no open dialogue. You may address the board with your comments, and each person has 3 minutes.
Want me to go first, Bill?
Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Coy. I am a resident of the city of Cadillac, homeowner. I'm hooked up to city water, so I certainly have no water issues. I want to thank this group, this board, for serving on this committee because it sure is important at this moment in time. So thanks for doing it. I also believe that the city of Cadillac is doing a good job as far as pursuing possible grants or other funding to help with the construction of the water main along Marathon Drive. And hopefully maybe even some funding to help these folks hook up in some fashion. But my question is, have any of the local financial institutions been a part of a discussion to possibly help homeowners who wish to hook up to the city water system finance this home improvement? Might there be federal housing, urban development programs that can help protect the banks who may wish to help with these home improvement loans that are specific to emergencies? There are homeowners who don't have much equity in their home. They may not have a good credit score. These folks may not qualify for a conventional home equity loan, and possibly a financial institution knows of a program that can extend credit to these folks. I know the city government in the past has not required people to hook up to the city water if they have wells. I do not imagine the city's going to do that in the future. I just don't see that. There's an old phrase, and I'm going to change it a little, but it's you can lead a horse to clean drinking water, but you can't make the horse drink the clean water. And I think that, ties in with this a little bit. I think a new water main along Marathon Drive, which I believe is going to get probably done within the next 6 months, is huge for those homeowners. But I honestly believe fewer than half of the people will hook up to it. And I think the primary reason is the cost, what it's going to cost them. So again, that was my key comment, was local financial institutions, can they help these folks? My hope is that the homeowners who have the poor drinking water will hook up and look at hooking up to the water system as a home improvement that increases your equity in your home, much like you would if you put in new sinks, faucets, countertops in your kitchen or bathroom. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
agree with most of what Mr. Coy just said, but the horse needs to be informed. The horse needs to be informed that there's chemicals in their water. And that didn't happen from the city. The horse needs to be warned. There's a duty to warn and inform. It didn't happen. That's part of the problem with people not testing. And Mike's right with most of what he said. The city has not done well testing, not spent a penny that I know of on that. You have. Thank you for doing that. They haven't done anything on blood testing, nothing with the health study. I would recommend a meeting with your group and the city council and bring the health department in as well. Come up with a plan for blood testing and health testing, health study. Looking forward to hearing how the LDFA wells are going. I do want to let you know 80% of the wells in Cadillac are coming back with PFAS in it. 8 out of 10. 40% are above federal criteria. Almost 1 out of 2. I think the message needs to be sent to people, since the city council is not doing their job, to tell people to not drink their water if they have a well until they can get better certainty. One negative test is probably not enough, because we've seen it at CTC, we've seen it over in Grayling Township. It comes and it goes. It might not be there one day. I would like to thank this board as well and join Mr. Coy in that. This board has done a great job moving a new direction, and please keep that up. I want to thank the governor, Eagle. Both came up with the idea to test 70 wells. That it was off the charts, and everything that was supposed to be going north hasn't. It's all over to Chestnut, Seneca. There's 12 streets. The city's moving forward on Marathon, but there's a mess throughout all those neighborhoods, and 150 can be hooked up pretty easily. And huge grants are going to be needed for streets like Marathon, Houston, areas that are behind the times and have been victimized by whomever or whatever and wherever this came from. So please, I'm looking forward to the LDFA test results. Overall, I do want to thank you all for serving as well and moving this in the right direction. You folks are doing the right thing for our community, and a lot of this is outside your area. And how it got this much PFAS could get all over that side of town. It had to have been historically done. Where did it come from? I don't know. And it does look like there's new splotches, so to speak, as well. But thanks for your attention to this. Thanks for being willing to serve and put up with the citizens and help the citizens. So keep that up, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Good morning, Art Stevens, and I definitely want to echo the thank you to all of you for being on this committee. Probably some of you, it was more than you had anticipated going on right now, but the commitment, the time, sitting up there, it's completely understood, so thank you. It's a good group. It's a pretty good A-team, probably Super Bowl caliber, tying into last night's game. But and you're probably going to be getting a lot put onto you as a group of leadership. So thank you for everything you're doing. A couple of things I wanted to mention. Going back, and again, I still do believe if you look at your bylaws, I know that some may argue my point, but your committee, your board, has a right to be involved in the budget. And just knowing the city's timing of their budget is April. So I was just kind of trying to reflect on that. Time's getting close. If your board, if you look at the bylaws, you do have a right to be involved in that budget process that times in with the city's budget. So just kind of throwing that out as something that you may want to review or look back in with your bylaws. I also, on the line of budgeting and timing, I did see there's some discussion about grant writing. Even though I don't know all the details onto that, I think that's a phenomenal idea, and the timing couldn't be any better either when you look at budgeting timing to getting in on the state's budgets or depending on the federal budgeting and such as well. I appreciate this board looking at that. While there are other options that are out there, that could be a huge option, is with the grant writing and trying to get it. We've gotten, and I know there's been some decisions made where the city may not want to focus as much on that, but if people can do that, there's grants out there. And hopefully we wouldn't have to get to the other options of other funding options. That might be something that would solidify it. And so I may be off on that whole grant writing topic, but I did want to address that as well. And then lastly, I was looking at the 2010 minutes from this board, and I wanted to also the ones that I listened to the meetings this summer, because that's when I was being told, Art, you don't know what you're saying. There's no private wells out there. So I was listening to these meetings trying to hear this. It might be worth going back and just looking at if any of the decisions were made under that premise. I know there was a lot of discussion about we don't have to worry about certain aspects of the testing because there weren't any private wells, and if that might alter it, as well as the 2020, maybe to get some more clarity. I know in 2020 they were looking at not testing at all because they were looking at shutting the LDFA down. And then I know recently finding out that with the EPA retirement, there wasn't any done for 4 years. I'm looking at trying to pursue that too, that they can't do that again, the EPA, and not have something available to allow a community not to be able to test. So with those said, the budgeting was the bigger items, and thank you for any roles you're taking as individuals or a committee in the grant writing process for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Okay. Next on the agenda is the committee's response to public comments, and this is something new that we brainstormed, trying to get some answers to the people that take the time and the energy to present their thoughts in these meetings, that we have a little bit of ongoing feedback from the board. And I can start out with some of the comments. For Art, the right to be involved in the budget. Mr. Tenza's done an amazing job with what he's put together for the meeting today. So we have an initial review today for February's meeting. In April, we've already put down that we're going to have full approval in April so that we're in time for the May of City Council approval for the budget. As far as grant writing, I know that later in the agenda, Brian and I believe Jeff's going to talk a little bit about what's been happening for grant writing. And as far as no private wells in the LDFA, you know, that's been mentioned a lot of times in the past in public comment, and we don't seem to ever get closure. I guess I would ask the board and I would ask the city, if we had actions in 2018 when we were dealing with the EPA's recommendation on the ordinance, that if you would please put on the website what those actions were to talk to those 3 families that were not hooked up to municipal. If you could put those on there and we can put this to bed. If you don't have the necessary actions documented, if you could just present to the people, you know, that you'll try to be more proactive on certain things in the future, but it'd be really nice if we could put this one to bed. It's been brought up probably 15 or 20 times, and we're wasting people's time. So we need closure on that. As far as 2021 EPA non-compliance, sorry to break us down, but as far as the beginning of the agenda, we're trying to resolve that today, and that's why I brought up the motions so that that is resolved with F&V and that it's documented in our meeting minutes. Mr. Barnett, you said a lot of positive things, so I don't have too many things to add to that other than the fact that I do know there's a lot of people in the community that are working hard to work with GLPAN to get more testing. I know that GLPAN is committed to 100 to 150 tests for the community. I know there's a private donor through the hard work of the Cadillac Advocates Committee that they have a private donor for another 100 tests to help the community. So there is a lot of work going on. I've been involved with some of that as well. But that's all I have to say concerning that. I don't know if Mr. Coy, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Used to work with you way back. The hookup costs and the grants available, we're going to be talking about grants later. I'm not super knowledgeable about urban development, but if anyone else in the board has some comments about any of the public comments, I'd appreciate it.
I believe there's a couple different sources to get help for some. Jeff, was it the health department and Northwest Community Action Agency that I think we spoke about before that had different options for people to hook up?
I don't recall us speaking on that, but maybe we did. I don't recall
I want to
that.
say it was June or July-ish, maybe. Matt, how about if I dig into that a little more to get the more specifics before I speak out of turn, and I'll present that maybe next meeting, or,
I'll put that as an action item. Thank you.
perfect.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
regarding the access to outside agency help for well testing and other types of testing, was it, you said GLPAN?
Yes, it's Great Lakes PFAS Action Network.
So if you've got some kind of network into them, I don't know what help or assistance our offices can provide in terms of helping to develop a list, or maybe even through MPART in terms of creating a list. I know that when, even when they do their testing, we don't actually get the specific data back. It's more in a summary form. But if there's some collaboration there, obviously feel free to pass along our information.
Yeah, there's a couple initial meetings that I'm aware of. I believe a couple people in the community are meeting with GLPAN as well as a few board members this Friday, just to try to get some brainstorming going. And I do believe that Owen and Jeff are talking to a couple people this coming Friday too.
Okay.
So I think we'll get some good traction there.
Good.
Anybody else on public comments?
I just say that with the testing program and potentially values that exceed health requirements, any help that the community can get for hooking up, because real estate disclosure laws are going to potentially hamper these people with any transactions that they are going to make. So any help that can be given, I think, would be appreciated and necessary.
All right. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the review of old action items. This is a new idea that we came for the agenda, trying to make sure that we have closure on some of the old business that we had from previous meetings. It's one thing to get a unanimous vote, but we just make sure that we're dotting the i's and crossing the t's. The first action item is adding additional LDFA minutes to the website. I believe, Jeff, you were involved with that. If you could give us some timing on that?
Yep, I talked to Owen and sent him some additional ones to put on the website, and I do believe they've been updated. The ones we have, we're still looking for more, and we'll put those on as we get them, as we find them. So that's an ongoing thing, but we have added some more. There should be some more on there.
I appreciate your efforts. I know the city council archives go back to 2008, and it's really, it's nice to be able to research. And I'm trying as a new board member to understand the business of the authority for the past few years, and until those are distributed, it's hard for me and the rest of the board to understand that. Go ahead.
I've also talked to Jeff about anyone that doesn't have access to a computer, or sometimes our family struggles a little bit with technology, so I thought about my husband. If he wanted these minutes, there's no way he could chase around through the website. So I asked Jeff, would you mind printing those out if somebody came to the counter, asked for those? And he said he definitely would. So maybe just letting the public know that those can be made available at the counter at no cost, so.
Okay. Thank you, Julie.
Is there a restriction on how many maybe at no cost?
Not that I'm, sorry to just jump in, not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Okay.
if people come to the front counter and ask for information that we have readily available on our website, we'll provide a courtesy copy. It's different than a Freedom of Information Act request that's looking for a specific public record or specific public document that isn't otherwise already available where we.
So as
have
long as it's
research.
on the website, they can get it printed off and there's.
That's been our practice, yep,
Perfect.
so.
So
Thanks.
I guess my long-term goal is to get the lion's share of the minutes online, and I guess you mentioned that some of them are lost and you don't know who holds the documentation for this, and what is the?
That they're lost, or,
But
I
who
know,
holds-
I was looking at some that I have on my computer that are, for whatever reason, corrupted. And you open up the file and it isn't there. I mean, it says there's a document there, but it's not there. So again, that's where we're looking at if we can do something to recover those. I don't know how they got corrupted, but, as time goes on, hopefully we'll get more and more and get those back on. And they'll, obviously be an ongoing issue for us. Obviously, from here forward, we're putting them on as soon as they're approved by the board. We're going to put the proposed ones on, within 8 days. And then when they're approved by the board, we'll put them down as a permanent record that this is the permanent one.
Okay.
That's what I can say on that.
Because record retention is a huge responsibility of the city or any entity. And if they're only on your computer, I just don't think that's the proper way of documenting. So hopefully there's another owner for that over time.
They're
We
they're
can
no
talk about
longer
it.
just on my computer. So,
'Cause it doesn't allow me to understand the business of the authority long-term. So I need to understand that. And I think there's a lot of people that need to understand that. All right, next on the old action items is MPART and LDFA well testing results added to the website. Last meeting, you said you were going to add the data that was reviewed for the well testing?
I did not, because I modified the forms. You'll see the modification today to add on what Mike wanted, and I think to add what Mike wanted, the headers and that will be on today after I present the data on those. So we can get those on today, but I didn't want to present something and then put it on and then rechange it and put it back on.
Thank you, I appreciate that
Yep.
timing. Next up is statutory requirements to provide 50% of the cleanup costs through assessments, the status on the audit and the documentation of compliance. And what I'm looking for here is Owen did an amazing job last meeting to discuss how we are compliant, but when you have a statutory requirement, we need to have some documentation on a yearly basis proving that we're meeting that. And I'm just wondering if we can set up a time in the future that we can make sure that this is completed.
The state requires us to file audit reports.
Okay.
Just all of that, so, would that suffice?
That'd be perfect, and if we could be copied on the board with that, so I can see that detail, that would be.
And will that audit report include kind of a statement of fact on compliance with the statute regarding the assessments?
That's just a financial audit.
And could you have that by next month, Owen? Is that enough time?
Yeah, I would assume I just need to go, print it off from the I don't know what it would look like printed off, all that stuff is filed electronically.
Okay.
By the auditors are required to
All right.
submit some of that stuff.
All right, thank you for your efforts. Next is distribution of financial information added to the meeting packet every other month. And I know for sure that Mr. Tenza's already done that. I see that in the packet. Thank you for that, sir. So I believe that's a closed thing that we're going to either start doing every other month or per month. So thank you for all that. And we'll review that soon.
I think parallel with any budget talks, maybe we will do it monthly. That we'll talk about later in the agenda. Just wanted a template, and I needed a better understanding, and Mr. Roberts was phenomenal in terms of helping me navigate some of that.
Thank you, Bill. Next is when to change the bylaw verbiage to get council approval from last month's progress. There was a lot of progress last month with audit verbiage, meeting timing, regular reporting, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess what I'm asking the board is, can we have maybe twice annually, maybe in June or December, where we approach the council with any changes in our bylaws so that it doesn't become too repetitive, but maybe a couple times a year if there's any suggestions. And I can put together like a monthly bucket of responsibilities for a calendar so that we know You know, in July, we're voting for new position board members, and in April, we have to make sure that we have budget done, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Did,
Marcus.
yes, sir.
There was also, I think, a couple of other items too that we should talk about as a board, not necessarily this morning, but there was a conversation that we had started a little bit about quorum numbers with regards to closed session that we should make a mental note to revisit. I think we even talked about, you know, number of membership, you know, to the board. You know, why the heck is it an even number and not an odd number? We should probably revisit, and then, you know, we can bring this to city council in part, or when we're done with it in full. You know, I don't think it necessarily matters. It just depends on how, you know, this body would like to handle it. You know, whether it's going to come back multiple times, or just, you know, sort of a one and done. You know, likewise, you know, for the meeting date, I know, like for this date, because of the holidays and all that, we kind of scrambled around at the last meeting to figure out, you know, what day would work best for most of the board members. And we had talked about, you know, hey, well, let's just establish, you know, an annual calendar that we think will, generally speaking, work, and we can put in those bylaws, that language, without necessarily actually adding the dates, but just saying how, you know, we'll establish an annual calendar, you know, meet once a month, that type of thing. So, but just a couple more.
with
housekeeping
that
things.
said,
So,
I thought our last discussion was we would like the 11th person, and that you were gonna check with council to make sure that that was all right. And
Okay.
also the fact of if members wanted to appoint somebody else other than themselves, if they could get representation for them instead of
council
that
is
exact-
looking into that. They're looking into for like the chamber and for the schools, you know, whether or not those entities have the right to actually appoint somebody other than like the CEO of those organizations. And then there was a question about voting itself. You know, the statute is a bit confusing, the way that it's written, and so, you know, this is somewhat novel. It's just taking a little bit of time to try to square away.
So do you expect to have that information by next month's meeting?
I don't want to put words in our attorney's mouth. I know that they're working on it. I would hope. But Mike might even have an update today. He is on listening, our video.
It is part of the agenda, so we'll
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll dot that I and
Yeah.
cross that T.
Yeah, thank you.
Generally, bylaws, you know, don't change frequently, so I guess I'm kind of surprised that we're talking about potentially bringing it to city council.
No, there was 6 different changes that we were trying to implement from last meeting, and I just want at least a review, maybe June, December, maybe it's just December, but to approach council with any additional, is it 9, is it 11?
Right.
What do we need for quorum, those kind of things, so.
And likewise, like the bylaws stipulate a specific meeting date and time, which doesn't really work for most folks on the board. So changing that and making it more flexible for this board to actually set that up versus the way that it's in there currently.
Okay, so next up is agreement on quarterly regular reports. This is one of the bylaw changes that, well, not changes, but just meeting the bylaws that will start and be shared with city council. So we're looking for every 3 months or quarterly reports, and I guess I just need an agreement from you, Mr. Director, of what months you're gonna start doing that.
I was wanting that from the board. What months do you want it? I thought that was you. I can start next month if you want, and do quarterly. Or maybe we should do, July, 3 months from July, because our fiscal year would start in July, so I could do 3 months after July and just do it quarterly at the end of each quarter, each fiscal quarter. So the last one would be June, for 30, the June meeting. So
I think that's a good idea, and if you do it next month, that puts you at the 9th month, so.
wow.
Thank
Here
you.
you go.
You are a built-in calendar.
The
So you're
math
gonna-
man.
So you're gonna start next month
Yep.
for March? to have something for city council? Okay.
Something for you and something for the city council. I'm assuming you want it also.
Absolutely.
So,
I think that we review that update within our board, and then you would pass that information on.
and it would be, I would assume you'd want it, it'd be the second city council meeting we'd present it to in a month, because they have two a month, and
That would
probably
make
their first one would be before our board.
And
Absolutely.
and just to jump in also, it could be just as simple as us providing the report for their reading materials as we do with all of our other boards and commissions. It's just a part of the public agenda packet.
Absolutely, thank you. Next is representation or delegation of representation. Was legal consulted to clarify, and Julie touched on this. Jen Brown had brought up the fact is can we get a delegation for the board? And you said that you would consult legal. And I guess I'm just looking for some timing on that, because these are some important issues to the board. And if you could commit to a time, Marcus, maybe not this very moment, but we would like to get some resolution.
If you don't mind, I'm going to see if, Mike, I don't know if you heard the question or are prepared to provide any information.
Yeah, when you're talking about a delegation, you're talking about, I think, appointment of the members themselves, right?
I think so. Is that what you were referring to, Matt?
Ms. Brown, could you?
No, Mike, so in the state statute, it cites two, for the school, because we're a public entity in the LDFA area for taxation purposes. Our question is can we assign somebody from the district or the organization, because we're not the only ones in the state statute, to represent the interests of the district in the authority?
Yeah, so, the statute's a little bit confusing only because it uses two different terms within the statute. One is a local governmental unit, but it also uses the word school district separate and distinct from that. So let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that the school is a local governmental unit as used under Section 405. And then you have to determine whether or not it levied 20% or more of the ad valorem property taxes in the district in the year before the year in which the authority district is established. So let's just assume that criteria is met. The only qualification then for members, assuming that the school district appoints two members, is that they be appointed by the chief executive officer. Now, that isn't defined as the school superintendent, but I assume that that would be the chief executive officer of the school district who could appoint any member to the LDFA.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be any particular individual. It's whomever the chief executive officer would appoint.
And Mike, to further clarify, would that appointment be similar to how the appointment by the county is done, whereby it doesn't require any further ratification from the city council? It's just as simple as the county advising, this is who our member is, and then we swear them in accordingly.
Yeah, so Section 405 says the board shall include one member appointed by the County Board of Commissioners of the county in which the authority is located.
Right, but what I'm suggesting is that if the superintendent of the school district says, here are the two appointees now to the LDFA, that's all that we being the city need. It's not as if I have to then run it up to city council for ratification or consideration. That we just take that and swear them in.
That's correct. The statute doesn't have any other qualifications.
Just so you're aware, I'll be at the next meeting. I'm just concerned with both Emily and I having to be out of district at the same time for lengthy meetings. That is a real challenge for us. And we have a certified water person for the school district, for the state, and works with Eagle and EPA. I think he'd be far more qualified than either of us combined to address some of the conversation we're having. So we'll make that change for March. Thank you.
I would
Like-
also.
Yeah, the only issue that I'd point out is, depending on what the term of years are. So for example, when first appointed, an equal number as near as possible are designated as 1, 2, 3, and 4 years. But I don't know what your current term of office is. So if, say, for example, you resigned your membership but appointed somebody else, then they would likely serve for the remainder of that term, whatever that might be.
So I was under the understanding, because of the language, that it is the executive official of the local, and we are under local because it doesn't say school district, it says college or university. Then so would we have to appoint somebody from the district? Because I'm not gonna have a teacher come to the LDFA, or like, we don't have people that would be able to not, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess
We
I'll
can look
leave
into
that
how
up to,
other,
I would leave that up to the appointing officer, who is the chief executive officer. And the statute says each local governmental unit. So if that chief executive officer is the school superintendent, they could appoint anybody to represent the school district on the LDFA.
sure, but my understanding is what you were just saying is that there's a term limit to that then. So if I've exhausted my term limit, I would have to find somebody else in the organization to appoint to the LDFA. Is that the understanding, or no?
No, so what I'm
Okay.
saying is that whatever offices are currently occupied for a term, and maybe they're not term specific, because I think you likely hold over, like for instance, let's suppose you had a 2-year term and now you're in your 3rd year, but you were never reappointed. Well, then you continue to serve until the successor is appointed, so you could just appoint a successor.
Okay.
If, however, you resigned your position, it would create a vacancy for those 2 positions, for which then you could appoint a successor who would fill the unexpired portion of the term.
Okay.
But it could be the same person, Mike, right? I mean, they could just be reappointed.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be somebody new. It's not term limited. It's just a definition of terms when you would either have to appoint somebody else, and depends on how then, whether there's a vacancy or whether simply you're appointing a successor to somebody who had previously been appointed.
I was gonna ask if he's able to opine on number of board members just in total. That was another question. You know, can we go up to 11?
Yeah, so the statute unfortunately doesn't provide for that, and we're drafting a memo that will kind of spell out why. So, for instance, there are 7 members appointed by the city. There's 1 appointed by the county board. There is no community or junior college, so that one's eliminated. And then there are 2 members of, assuming that the school district is a local governmental unit, that levied 20% or more in the year before the year in which the authority is established, those 2. So you've got 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. Next on the action items is attendance requirements clause. It was brought up by Mr. Tenza. Was legal consulted for clarity, and Marcus, you brought this up, that you were gonna talk to legal about this. We're looking for those board members that want to be involved, but they have stated in the past that they sometimes don't have the time to be here. And can there be an attendance clause?
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if you were able to hear that clearly, but along the same vein about, you know, membership, the question is whether or not there's anything that we can do in terms of encouraging attendance. I think it becomes a little bit tricky depending on which members are not here, based on, you know, how they're appointed to the board.
Well, this is what I'll say. Like, let's suppose your bylaws contained a provision that said if you have 3 or more unexcused consecutive absences, that would constitute, say, nonfeasance in office and subject to removal. Now, the statute, the LDFA statute, does not go that far in talking about removal, but typically, once you're appointed with a defined term, then removal is the option if you don't meet the qualifications. Those qualifications could be set forth in your bylaws requiring attendance at meetings. Otherwise, you're subject to that removal. And that removal would generally be by the entity that appointed the person. So for the city's appointees, it'd be the city. For the county, and then the school appointees.
And presumably at their discretion.
Yeah, the statute's not real clear on it. So typically when you have defined terms, it's not discretionary. There has to be sort of cause, either misfeasance, malfeasance, or nonfeasance in office. Failure to attend meetings can be defined as nonfeasance in your bylaws.
And I'm not sure if we're ready to proceed with that. I just wanted to know the legal opinion, because Bill had brought that up in the past. So thank you for that, Mike. I think we can
Yep.
proceed, and we can probably talk about that offline. Next was a comment by Mike in the last meeting. Were drinking water standards and groundwater treatment standards added to the well results. And Jeff, can you give us timing on that?
Yeah, it's done, and you'll see when we present it under number 8.
Okay, perfect. And then Jen Brown had a suggestion of an overall summary talking about how many well tests were clean so that we weren't skewed by the data set because you were only showing us the non-compliant.
Right. And I do have a bunch of statistics or percentages when we get there, but I can say 10%, 10% of the 10 of the wells, or 17.5%, were tested clean. No PFAS at all detected in them. So I can do that now, and when we get to the summary page, I got some other summaries.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up is the status of carbon filter disposal process and contacting suppliers for process understanding. Jeff, you had talked about this in the last meeting, and I was hoping you had an update on that.
Yep, kind of slow going, but kind of coincidental. This morning I got contacted by the company we used, and their person that needs to talk to me is in Houston doing a trade show, and he's going to get back to me as soon as he's done. So I would assume by the next one we'll have it all, the process pretty well nailed out by the next council meeting. So about what we can do.
Jeff, would you like to consider Plan B, Plan C from other disposal firms, recycling firms, or you feel pretty good about this one? We have is it a contractual agreement we have in place that you'd like to stay with?
We've had a contractual service, and they do have carbon that's ours there, supposedly. Again, we've got to nail that all out. When we started this, there was extra carbon that was stored there, and we were supposed to trade it out. Now, with PFAS being introduced, I don't know if that's still the case or not. So that's one thing we've got to discuss with them. If it is, then we own, if it is and they can recycle that, burn off the PFAS, whatever they do with it, then we have carbon there that we already own. So I would say to stay with them and just replace what we have. Now, if we can't, if they say no, PFAS is different than the VOCs and the hexavalent chrome, we just need to get new, then I would certainly be open to going to a different contractor at that point.
Where are they located, sir?
Pennsylvania.
And what do you know when the last time we just recently changed our carbon out recently, just in the last 2 months, correct?
We changed vessels. We had new carbon in a vessel, and then we had carbon we were using. We switched from the using carbon to the other one that was new in the vessel. So the last time we've actually changed out those vessels was 2009. Was the last time that I do believe 2009. I can get you an exact date.
They're
but-
still holding the 2009 change out,
Yes.
and you
because-
haven't shipped out what you've just recently
No,
changed
because
out.
we're
We
getting
still
that
have that.
contact together, and you know, it's so infrequent, and people have changed jobs, and you know, actually the company changed names and changed locations in Pennsylvania, so it was kind of interesting to track them down where they were. But I do got the company that said, "Yep, that's us," and you know, we're just a new name, new company, new address. So,
So what triggers changing out the carbon?
in this case, we were measuring the PFAS that was coming through, and because I-5 is our chromium well, and the chromium well is the only one that currently goes through the carbon, and so we were measuring in and out of the I-5 because PFAS has been, in other places, I don't think it has here yet, been linked to plating companies, and I-5 was a hexavalent plater. We haven't linked PFAS to it yet, but it's associated with it. So we did the testing, and it had PFAS, and it was pretty much the same coming in as out. At that time, we actually did do an effluent sample at the river, and we were below, even though that carbon was not taken much out, it was actually still meeting, the discharge was meeting the new federal standards, was below that. And then we decided to switch out the carbon and see what new unused carbon would do, which significantly reduced the amount of PFAS that was going through there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we look forward to that update in March then. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Next is the status of wells sampled. We had approval for up to 15 more last month.
Yep, and they're done, and they're in my report for the PFAS.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next is well flow project, an update of trying to do S1, S2, and I-5 through the carbon filter.
I'm talking to Catherine, our EPA contact on Wednesday on that. So she wanted to talk right now, and I said, I'm going to be in the board meeting, so. And last week she tried to set it up for 11 on today, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me.
Has she given you any sense of the time frame for approval? I know
No.
it can be awfully slow sometimes. Nothing against our friends at EPA, but sometimes it gets quite involved for changes, approval of changes.
She has not.
Okay, so we don't know. It could be a month, it could be 6 months.
Exactly.
But, okay.
Okay, and then last is environmental optimization services update.
Yep, I was, in your packet, you have this, if it comes up. Well, in your packet, you have a bid amount. We did receive the bids on Friday, and, so, boy, I thought I had it right here. From the environmental, so I guess I'm looking for a group of you to volunteer to review the bids that we got in for the environmental consultant. We had Tetra Tech, Materials Testing Consultants, Vanderbrink, GZA, what else did we have? We had Environmental Resources and WSP and Geosync Consultants. All bid, and the bids were from 8,000 to 69,000. So I'm looking for board action for having people on the board that wants to review the proposals and recommend something for the board. Tetra Tech currently is our current or our former consultant. I do not know much about the materials testing consultants. Fleece and Van Brink I've worked with. Environmental Resource Group we've worked with. Geo Consultants, that was the person at our PFAS summit here locally. So I think there's a lot of good firms there, but if we can get a couple board members that want to review those, and then I can review with them, or you guys can review it on your own. It's, up to the board.
Mr. Chair, I'll throw my name out as a volunteer, and I'd like to, of course, collaborate with our director on that review. And I would suggest we narrow down the list to 2 or 3, and then bring the recommended short list to be interviewed by the entire LDFA, so we have a complete review.
Yes, Mark.
Just a process point. We can narrow it, but we still need to present all of the data. Otherwise, then that administrative work group has to be a whole public meeting, and then that involves a lot more bureaucracy, and then you're having a public meeting while you're interviewing firms. It just gets a little weird. So.
Well, thank you
yeah,
for that friendly correction.
No, I mean, it's fine. I think what we do is create a table, and you prioritize, right?
Got it.
But you still show all the data,
Got
and then the board can do what they want. So
Do you generally have in-person presentations also, or do you do it strictly by?
we've done it both. I mean, it all depends on what the issue is and what the desire of the board is. I mean, we have not had an in-person presentation by a professional services vendor in quite a while that I can recall. Doesn't mean that we can't for this, if this is what the board wants. So,
I would be like to be part of that process, and I think we stated that in the last meeting. So, Jeff, being you're the director, if you could set up a meeting
With you and Brian?
and whomever else would like to join, but I'm okay with the 3 of us unless
All right.
we'll proceed.
If the board
this
wants
thing
more, let
moving.
me know, and if not, I'll send out I'll scan the documents, send them to you first, and then we'll have a meeting.
Okay, thank
So,
you. All right, next up on the agenda is the city update. There's 3 different issues under the city update. Water main infrastructure extension update. Jeff, do you have?
Yep, water main infrastructure update, that is Marathon Street, I do believe we're talking about. That has been out to bid. As I had stated before, we got the plans for that engineered. We went and got the state okay for the permit, and at the last council meeting, the council wanted us to go out and bid that to get a price back in before they approve it. They want a price on that before they will approve it. So that is currently out to bid for Marathon. That, I do believe that bid is for, well, first there's 2 parts of the bid. The first part is just for the water main up to the valve box, city valve box. And the second part was from the valve box into the home itself. So it's connection fee. So we'll see what the prices come back in at, but that's out to bid currently.
Does the bid sheet for the box to the house, is that broken down by property, or is it a summary bid?
It's, I think, per foot of it, and then I do believe there's the well abandonment on there also for each of the wells to be abandoned.
Thanks.
So,
Okay. Next is the Herring Township collaboration update.
sent several emails out to Bob. I keep getting responses from Bob, but no messages on them. So I've got to actually call him. I don't know what he's responding, but I get a message back, and it's my message again, and there's nothing more on it. So I have to call him. I sent one last Friday, and I received one this morning. This thing back from Bob, and it doesn't have any words on it. It just my message out to him. So.
I know we discussed for a moment about you going to the Herring Township Board. Have you looked into that any more of what date that might be, or if in fact you are gonna go?
I have not looked into that yet. I can go if, I guess I can go if I'm directed by the city. I mean, I hate to say it, this is more of a city issue than an LDFA issue. So if the city board directed me to go, I would definitely go.
I just know we spoke about it, and you said
Yep.
at that meeting that,
And if the city board directs me to go to it, I will go to it. So I can't do it as an LDFA director. I gotta do it as the
Correct.
utilities director. for
so
that one.
will you let us know if you plan on going to that?
Yep, I will.
You know, ultimately, we'd love to be able to have meaningful dialogue, you know, with the township to the north, you know, versus just sort of cold calling at a public meeting, you know, and having, you know, a city staff person there. I mean, that may set things off unintentionally on the wrong foot.
Well,
But-
I guess that's what I was looking for. Is there any kind of dialogue back and forth?
Bob
Where
has.
are we with this?
Bob has reached out to me on the, that's why it's so strange. On the one that the EPA wanted to talk to Bob, I sent out on the same email, and I got back a message from Bob, hey, go ahead, set it up, da-da-da-da, and I did all that. And then these other ones, I'm just getting the same email, same address, it's coming back, but there's no message on it. So I don't know if it's what's happening, but today I'll make a call out to Herring Township and see what Bob wants.
Thank you.
Okay, and then water delivery update.
We are still giving away water at the 44th Street water plant. We sent out letters. We went to all 57 residents that we have test results for that the state has, and we dropped off a case of water at each one and a letter that said, hey, if you want water delivered to your house, call us. We've gotten 3 or 4 people called us back on that, and we are set to deliver on Wednesdays. We're going to give them a week's worth of water on Wednesdays. And then what's happening right now is my guys are sitting there till 6, 7 at night, and we're getting 1 or 2 people coming a day. So it's easier and better for me just to have a day where I take 3, 4 hours and have them just go out and deliver water. So.
Would it also be helpful to hand out a letter as people pick up water, so in case they were missed for whatever reason, they would know?
We could do that. Again, there's very few people that are coming out. I bet you we have about 10 people coming out to and that's just a guesstimate. We went to all 57 homes. We went to all of this ones in the city of Cadillac, and we went to all the ones out in the township. So all the ones we have test results for, we physically went to their addresses, dropped off a case of water and a letter with
So
the case of water.
people that are coming, those 10 people, they know that they could get it delivered.
But I'm assuming they will get it delivered. I'm assuming there's some of the people that called us. And we are delivering until they get a filter installed. Once you have a filter installed, you have a point source in your house of PFAS-free water. And then we can use that bottled water for the people that haven't had their filters installed yet, because there is a process there of how long it's going to take.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Jeff.
yep.
Next is discussions about current PFAS results.
Yep. So again, here's a new summary table of the PFAS results. As I said, right away up on top, you can see that this has the drinking water, Michigan Safe Drinking Water Act, MCL 1, and the groundwater cleanup standard. They are exactly the same. They got there by different legislations, but they're the same. And then the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations is a new federal one. And then I actually put in some of these, the Michigan Rural Surface Water Quality Values. That is the NPDS permit. So at the groundwater treatment plant, we have both, we have an NPDS, so we're regulated under the Michigan Rule 57 Surface Water Quality Values for our NPDS.
Can you just explain what that acronym stands for?
NPDS is National Pollutants Discharge Elimination System, and it's this Michigan Rule 57. As you can see, the numbers are quite high for PFBS. PFHXS and PFONA, and actually PFOS is the only one that is lower. And that's for wastewater. Now, we're kind of a unique animal because the way I understand it, there's two things working here. If we're cleaning up the water in the ground, we have to meet the drinking water standards or the groundwater cleanup standards. If we're getting the contaminants out of the water, we have to meet the NPDES numbers. So it's kind of how you look at the beast. Are we getting the contaminants out of the water, or are we cleaning up the water that's there? So it was quite an interesting talk with Mike Drury on that. So I have that right there. Let me get to a better screen for you guys. Well, no, where's my MPEG? This is a good one right here, the MPART results. This is all the testing that they've done out here. So I can scroll over. The blue is above the national drinking water standards. The yellow is above the federal drinking water standards. And you can see we had this one well that had nothing in it. There's a lot that, as Mr. Barnett says, that has PFAS in it, but isn't above either standards, but they do have PFAS in it. These are the 57 that we have. Of the 57 that we have, and I'm just going to scroll all the way over. There's another one with nothing in it. The yellow is above the state standards. So just scrolling over, we have 3 or 4 right here that have nothing at all in them. Again, we have this one that has 31, but there's no limit on that number, but it is a PFAS. So of the numbers we have, of the 57, 10 of them were non-detect. 10 out of 57. 46 out of 57 are below the state standards. Currently, that's the only standard we have is the state standard. I know the federal has come up with a new standard. The state hasn't adopted it yet. So of the standards we have, the only one we have is the state currently that's active, and 81% basically is below that state standard, which means 19% is above that state standard, or 11 out of 57 of them are above that state standard. About 49% of them are below the new federal standard, will be below the new federal standard. That means 51% of these will be above the new federal standards when they come in. All right. 18 of the 57 test results, or 31%, is between the federal standard and the state standard. I think that's interesting. So they're relatively in that area between the two. Of those, 9 of them have one substance, like this guy right here, has one substance that's at the federal level. There's 9 of them that have a 4 on them, and they don't have any other regulatory on them that says that it's above the PFAS limit. So 9 of those have it right at that limit. So actually, depending, as we've set up there, the test that you show stuff one day and show stuff another day, those 9 might show nothing, or they might show a lot.
Jeff, when you're calculating the number that are at or that are above the federal standard, do you include, so if the standard PFAS standard is 4 and we get a result of 4, do you throw that into the group?
I included it. I'm not sure if it's 4 and above or above 4, so I went with it's 4 and above. So if you get a 4 or above, I took it that you violate the federal standard.
Okay.
If I would have went above 4, the numbers would have been a lot different.
I appreciate that conservative approach. I mean, if it was my house and I had I have a nitrates.
Yep.
And it's at 10, even though I think the correct way to look at that standard is your MCL, maximum containment limit, is 10. If you got a 10 for nitrate, technically it's clean water, but That's not, if I had that in my well, I would consider it above, so I appreciate your conservative approach.
4 and above.
Jeff, can you clarify also? My understanding is that if you have any level of detection, even if it's well below any drinking water standards, that MPART will still qualify you for receiving a complimentary filter. Is that?
I do believe that is what I understand also, and Rob from the health department's here. Is that what they're doing, Rob? Is any hit?
It's site specific though, so.
Right, for a
now-
Cadillac.
Now, what they do at this site, they may do different at a different site at the state, but for right now at this site, yes.
So at this site, if you have any PFAS at all, even though they're all below the federal limits, let's say, you're getting a filter.
Within the MPART areas of inspection.
Within the study zone. Obviously, that's the only ones they know about currently. I do have, again, this is all gonna be on the webpage. We got the safe water, we got the titles here for the 3 on this one. Again, for the shallow wells, I got the intermediate wells. We did get those results, and I think this is the one we all want to see. Plan effluent, the one test we did, again, everything was below the federal limits for the new drinking water, so they're below the state limits. We are retesting that. I went out and that test has been taken now that we're going through the new carbon. This was with the old carbon before we went through the new carbon, so we are retesting the effluent. I expect it to be even lower than this in the future. We have I-5 has one parameter that is above the new federal limits. I-2 has a couple. I-3 is kind of interesting because you'll see I-11 over here. I-3 has nothing in it. I-11 has one that's above the state standard. These 2 wells, you can touch the wells if you put your arms out. They're right next to each other. The I-11 is 160 foot deep. The I-3 is 210 foot deep. So they're different places in the aquifer. So in this area where they're literally you can touch the 2 wells, at the I-3 nothing is detected at all, and at the I-11 you have a parameter that's above the state limit.
What? My eyes are getting pretty old, Jeff. What's your number for I-11?
12.
4.
12 for, let me see. Let me go back. I think it's P4. It's 12 for P4. The state limit is 8 currently. Obviously, the Fed's going to be 4. And the discharge limit going out to the river would be 170. Now, again, as you can see here with the 3.9 for the plant effluent, after all that treatment, after it goes through, it is below the federal and below the state limit. But that I-11 coming into the plant, it is one of our hottest ones. The other one, we got into the S wells. We know about the S's. We have S2, these 2 yellow ones. S2, again, with the P4 at 10.8 and 14. Those are duplicate samples, but we put them on just for everybody to see. And that's the only one. So we only have 2 of them that's above state standards, the S2 and the I-11. And remember, S2 is one of the 2 that we're going to be bringing to the carbon filters.
Total count for above federal for the I wells. I think we had 15 sample results.
8, 9 that has any bit above.
9
that has any bit
9 of
above.
the 15, with the highest being I-11 at 12.
Well, S2 at 14.
Okay, but for the I wells of the
Yep.
intermediate well.
Yep.
And the reason that that's significant is if you look at mass loading, the S well is pumping out at a rate of 80, 90 gallons per minute.
Yep.
Our friend Mr. Solomon will appreciate this stat as a hydrologist, and the significance of the I well. That's a much higher flow rate. I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have a range of what the gallon per minute for the I well is for I-11?
Well, it's a shallower well. I would assume it's gonna be on the high side, probably 180, 150, 180.
Versus 60, 40
Yep.
for the shallow well.
Yep.
So much more water.
I can get the exact number, though. I do not have it on me currently, but
I apologize, Mike, or Jeff, you've given us, you sent that out, but it's an order of magnitude higher.
it is an order higher. I would like to, again, reiterate, we only have the 2 that's above the state. Again, we have the 9 that's above the federal.
9 out of 15 or 9 out of 18?
9 out of 50. Now you got me doubting myself. Let me count them really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 9 out of 17. Some of those were duplicates. That's why you saw me skipping the numbers.
I think it's 9 out of 15 because you're counting the. If it's 9 out of 15, that's 60% of the wells that are above federal within the LDFA.
Above the drinking water standard.
Correct.
Yes.
And you can get this in you can get this file
This is
emailed out to us.
It's going to be on the website.
We're gonna put it on the web, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie raised a good question for those that either don't have the technical ability. Is that format printable?
Yeah, it's an Excel
Okay.
sheet. We can print it.
Thank you.
But it's, yeah. So anyways, the numbers are there. There are some PFAS here. There doesn't seem to be a smoking gun. We do have a map up here. I wanted to get electronically. I didn't get it electronically. That will show the locations of the well. The S2 well and the I-11 well are just about as far apart from each other as you can get. So there's nothing there that just shows an area that is high concentration in one area it's coming from.
So on the previous sheet, I noticed that in the private well,
Yep.
there was a 190 that you didn't point out, and that one's a lot higher than.
Yep.
I mean, currently, the largest, or one of the largest, was 18 on
Yep.
Arthur Street, and I'm seeing a 190.
Yep, you probably are. I do believe that is the limit on that one is 420.
Oh.
So I do believe that's that one. And there is no, I'll go over and see, but I think that's that one. And there's no federal limit at all on it. So let me.
All right, that number jumped out. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it jumped out to me because it's the only one of those that we have, which is just a weird, and now I missed it. But it's the only one we have, and it was kind of a shocker that it was so high.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad that we're
Yep.
testing for PFAS in the LDFA. Obviously, that's some
Oh.
good information. We might not have easy actions right now for those wells, but it's good to have that information.
I
can
stand
start
wrong
moving.
on that, Matt. That is not the 420. It's a 51, and it is this one right here, the 190, is that one. So it was one that I counted above the state standard of. But again, that's a weird one because we're getting 3s and 17s, and it's the only one we have that is that high. But the standard for the groundwater, I didn't want to misinform you guys, is 51, not.
Do you know
So
the street name?
I do not know. The state is they're not telling us the addresses of
Find
those.
out, that's fine. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jeff.
Yep, no problem. And this will be on the website. Yeah, this will be on our website. So, and now that we have Mike Hamner's additions on it, I will put my sheet of the percentages on there too, so.
You said the state doesn't tell you the address, but clearly if that were my address, the state is telling me, right?
Mhm.
They've tested my well and that was
The
my
state
well,
will
they
tell
would
you.
tell me.
The state
It's
will
not-
tell you,
Okay,
but they will not tell me or the general public.
sure.
They want to keep it between the homeowners and,
Just to clarify, Mike Jury is telling us what street all these numbers are coming from. So if you want to know for Marathon what the numbers are, they don't do the addresses. they also tell the well depth. So if you're on Marathon and well depths are all around 60 feet, and I don't have well logic open, but let's say that's the trend, you can see at what aquifer there could be an issue, which could help motivate some people to get testing.
I was just making sure homeowners were notified.
Oh, for
Yep.
sure,
The
for
results.
sure.
Yep, they're just not sharing that with the general public. I mean, they might do street addresses, but they're not sharing
Sure.
addresses. So,
Thank you. Next is Cadillac monitoring plans, the QMP, which is the quality management plan, and the ICIAP, which is the institutional control implementation and insurance plan. This is the one thing that wasn't on the last meeting
Yep.
minutes.
and I apologize for that. I did not review the minutes enough. I was rushing for this. It's my fault. If they're not on the minutes, that's my fault. It will be on the next, the amended minutes that will be approved next time. We are currently preparing or our consultant currently preparing the sampling plan since the QAPP the QAP has been approved. Once it's completed, they will deliver to us a PFAS sampling plan and a quality management plan. After that, they're gonna do the ICIAP, the institutional control plan, but that will require input from both the LDFA board and the city of Cadillac. There will be there are some ICs, institutional controls in place currently. Those will be reviewed, and then they'll determine what other ones will be needed to be added to those. And that was her update to me, is that they're just taking it step by step. So I did reach out. I'm assuming the QAP was just approved like around the time of our last meeting or right after our last meeting. So I'm assuming by our next meeting, we will have the sampling plan and the QMP in our hands, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm encouraged that we're proceeding quickly because these requirements for the QMP and ICIAP have been on the 5-year EPA Kaiser reports for many reports as a requirement. It's mandated that we do it, so thank you for proceeding with that.
Yep.
Next up is the Treasury report, and I think, Mr. Tenza, do you have any highlights? Thank you so much for all this information. Is there anything that jumps out that you'd like to share?
No, I'll be concise as we have other important things, but as a volunteer position, it's in conjunction with the talent of Mr. Roberts, and Owen availed himself twice. I had just rudimentary questions. This is month 8 of the fiscal year. I'd hear an approval by the board, or Jeff had the authority to do things. They said, I really need to see some isolation on what these real costs are to budget. Intrinsically, these funds aren't difficult to evaluate. There's 3 siloed funds. The big one, I would say, Mr. Chair, is the TIF capture, which will happen in March, and then there's a general transfer in June. I don't think anything out of the ordinary. I just wanted to see things on paper. I know you're having a parallel pathway in the budget talk, so it's important to see some of this, because we're in month 8 of the fiscal year, and obviously we're in times like no other as it relates to budget discussions. So really wanted to establish the template in conjunction with Owen, and he was very helpful. Certainly, if we see something is misreported that I didn't catch, we'll figure that out.
Would you like a motion to,
I don't think it's actionable. I think it's more of a just, as the volunteer side of it, it's just it's a report out.
Right.
I don't know if Marcus or Owen would have a thought. To my knowledge, it's not actionable.
We have not had this board accept them in the past. It's just been a report out. But you can always change that protocol if you wish.
which do you prefer, Bill?
I'm good for this as a report out. And I think, and Owen had mentioned, all 3 funds are audited as part of the overarching city audit. So I'd be comfortable with that, and when that is established, I think for now and for the public's sake, just trying to get information out and frankly, a better understanding of the funds for me.
I really like the report and I really appreciate it, so.
There was a couple things when I was looking at this late last night, and I don't see it on the handouts. It was year-to-date, and I just had a couple questions, and forgive me that I can't find it.
It's okay.
There was a year-to-date for testing costs that was around $10,000, which seems normal, but then the UPS shipping fees was $3,300 for that $10,000 of sample year-to-date. And I don't see the year-to-date spreadsheet on here, and maybe I'll just table this till next meeting. I was just, you know, if there was 10 samples, I mean, that would be $333 shipping for each sample. If there's 100, then it would be 33, and then that would make sense. But I don't recall 100 different samples that we've done, or tests that we've done that we've had to mail.
We do sampling that you guys, we do monthly sampling that you guys probably aren't seeing. VOCs has a 24-hour turnaround, so you have to expedite the shipping. So that, you know, you go to, you know, whichever service you're using, and it's guaranteed delivery within 24 hours. So that drives up the price considerably. So the volatile organic compounds, anytime you're doing that, is one of the ones that. So I know you guys are looking at the testing we're doing for the PFAS, but we do actually VOCs and the hexavalent chrome, which has different hold times, and depending on the hold times, it's what shipping method you have to use.
Because I was just I was looking at the overall numbers just to see if anything jumped out that didn't make sense. And looking at what the budget is allocated for the year and then what's spent year to date. And it looks like for our legal, we have $6,500 budgeted, but it's zero has been taken out. And then there was a side note on the sheet that said that legal since November is taken out of the general fund of $6,300. So I'm trying to understand, we're not taking it out of our legal fund, we're almost past our budget allocation, but it's coming out of the general fund. And how many months is that $6,300 for?
Owen?
Let me take on.
Maybe we
Please.
could talk about that later, or?
No, with that, thank you, Mr. Chair, because that was
So-
addressed in my meeting. Thank you,
Is that
Owen.
okay, Bill?
Yeah.
We talked about this,
100%.
so, the $6,000 in legal fees is actually out of the fund where the TIF capture goes. So if you look at it under the fund with the fund number 495, you'll see that $6,000 is in contractual services in that fund. And that was some fees from July through October. So since November then, there have been no new legal fees classified to any LDFA fund. The general fund has been covering all legal fees related to the analysis of the LDFA.
And the only reason I ask is because we're preparing a budget for next year, and if
Yep.
if that was taken out of the allocation for legal, we would already be at the point with how many months left in our fiscal year.
4.
Right,
Right.
so I was just
Yep.
asking
So
that
there's,
question.
yeah, so there's zero in the operating. The only thing I think that we would probably explicitly still take some out of there is as it's related to anything, you know, particularly related to testing or operations. Some of the other things, you know, we made the decision to cover those with the general fund since November, so.
And that's going forward, correct?
Yep.
Thank you all.
Yep.
If I have any more questions, I'll reach
That's
out
fine.
to you.
Yep, anytime.
Thank you for your
Good
time.
question.
And do you have any initial budget review that you want to talk about, Jeff, before?
Yeah, I got a sheet I added, initial budget proposal. Pretty much the, what you guys have seen there. And just, it shows the activities of previous years, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And I just put some numbers out there just to start the ball rolling. And if you guys want different numbers,
What page number are you referring to? I really appreciate
it was a separate sheet. It's up on the board.
Okay.
You didn't, here, if you don't have one,
We'll share it, we're fine, thank you.
All right. So I just, this was part of Bill's report. I just narrowed it down a little bit. And as I budget, I go through all the utility stuff and the LDFA stuff, and I just put numbers down that I thought would be good off of historic trends and off of where we're at currently in the year. I only have 2 of them that I think should be increased, and that would be the wages. I increased about $1,000, and then the contractual services, I threw a number out there, 9,000 more, because we're doing a lot more. Currently, I don't know, it was 9,000. I don't know if you guys want to go up or down on that, how you want to proceed. We can always do budget transfers if we have to. It's kind of a weird one because we don't know what we're going to run into with all the new EPA stuff coming up. So everything else pretty much is the same. The utilities, we are way down on utilities, on what we should be spending on utilities currently, because we did some modifications at the plant. But I would keep that line item the same, because we don't know if the EPA will ever make us go back to running both towers. And that would be mostly the electricity we're saving currently. So that's just my, you guys do with it what you want, but that was my proposed start.
Jeff, did you assume the bid for the professional environmental consulting services in your contracted services recommended budget?
I did 9,000, so kind of close to it, yeah. But that was pre me getting those on Friday, so.
You only cover one, so I would guess we would need to put more into contracted services if we're
Again,
gonna recommend one of these.
This is why we're discussing it.
Just a point of clarification on some of these overarching engineering studies. I'm probably close enough to this microphone here. On some of the overarching environmental or engineering studies, some of the TIF dollars can be used for those studies. So there is a budget right now that exists in the fund where the tax captures go that would cover the past study of 32,000, I think. And then we'll take a look at some of the new stuff and which funds could be used to do that, and budget appropriately, certainly, and keep you just apprised of where those are going.
Jen, I had the same question, but our secretary, Mr. Tenza,
Hey, I didn't get an additional job, treasurer.
our treasurer, boy, I'm getting old.
I'll
Bill.
demand a coup.
Our treasurer, an all-around great guy, Mr. Tenza, pointed out that there's a $50,000 line item for contractual studies, engineering.
That's in the capital.
In the capital budget.
Yeah.
And I think as we review this information more offline, I'm sure we'll have maybe more feedback next meeting. But thank you for the initial review.
Again, as you have pointed out, April, we need it done by, and so just April. So.
All right.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, sorry.
Our legal contractual services, can you tell me who that legal is?
Yep, Foster Swift,
Okay.
city attorney.
So Mike,
Mike works for Foster Swift.
okay.
Yep.
My understanding was his hours for the LDFA would run through the city's billable hours and not through our funds.
That's two different things. So yeah, he has billable hours.
Uh-huh.
But again, the LDFA is not incurring those costs
Okay,
since November.
okay.
And that's going to stay that way ongoing?
Not necessarily. No, I think there was an extra level of some attention to logistics and bylaws and things, and that's why that decision was made. It's not necessarily particular to the operations of groundwater treatment or tax capture specifically.
Okay.
So once we're through those things and it starts to be more related to, hey, we need legal involvement on this decision by the EPA that we may or may not agree with 100%. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but those things then, in conjunction with what's reported out on a regular basis, would once again be covered by funds either in the TIF or through operations. But for the time being, as we kind of work through things, that's the plan that was made.
Mainly, the service in the past has been used for when we have an NPDS permitting, and the state will put something on the permit that you just I've had stuff on the permit that would break our contractual lab services because they wanted it tested every week. and then you do negotiation, and okay, once a month is good enough, and so yeah, usually that's when we use that legal contractual services with an NPDS permit renewal. So
Quick comment regarding the operating budget. Most, just for everyone's, for the entire board's information, Jeff, we've talked some about utility costs, and it looks to me like our major cost for the $280,000 operating budget is utilities, electric, gas, with electric being the highest, the most significant, of around $150K a year, 160. Is that accurate?
I would say so, yes.
So that's a big number.
That is a huge number.
So the degree that we can manage these costs, electric costs, that would yield probably the most benefit if we could move the needle on that.
Yep. And that's why, like earlier, we had reconfigured this tower so we're only using one and not doing the transfer pump, and that was a big savings for us to do that and prove to the EPA that we could actually meet our treatment parameters with less electricity.
And
So-
you and I are, we're back and forth on the electric utility bills, and there might be some additional savings there.
Yep.
Just the way we structure the rates, and we've got some questions, and we're looking at that issue, Mr. Chair, as a potential future savings, just an administrative change. So we're working collaboratively on that, and Mr. Tenza is provided an assist. We may have good news to report. Nothing yet.
Appreciate your efforts, Brian and Bill. That brings us to grant writing update, and I believe Brian and Jeff want to talk a little bit about this. Brian, did you want to start out, or do you want to?
Sure, I can. I mean, I want to tread lightly on this subject, Mr. Chair, in recognition that this focus of this effort is with the city. This is beyond the LDFA, but since we've all kind of gone through the issue of PFAS, we have volunteered extracurricular help with the city. They've received it well. We're just in the very early stages of learning what's available. I would say we're taking the strategy of looking under every stone for funding outside of the city. I agree with Mr. Hamner's assessment that this is a statewide issue. This is an unknown issue, that these pollutants this is an orphan issue. We should look to the state and the feds to fund everything possible to assist the city and to defer costs for the residents of the city and the businesses, importantly, maintain the economics for being in business in this community. Mr. Tenza has been great to work with. He's been a great ally. We've reached out initially to some state agencies, state leaders. I will say a couple things. That there's really nothing to report except the state budget process has begun. It's begun. The governor's offered her a budget. It's time that the iron is hot to strike for the budget process. It's time for us, if we're going to get state monies for fiscal year 2026, which starts in October, it's time for us to be engaged. And that means, we need to work on getting an ask and getting it to the right people. Marcus, we've worked together well. You got a great team of grant procurement people here. It's been a good collaboration, and I'm optimistic we'll receive some funding. How much and when is to be determined. I appreciate any comments from the community as far as ideas. I'm sorry, Marcus.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, Brian, one of the conversations you and I had too, we were talking about, sort of chicken and egg, using Marathon Drive as for instance, how we're moving that forward now without, knowing if there'll be any timing that'll sync up for outside funding, and the reality that if we are successful in achieving any outside funding granting, that it likely won't be a retroactive type grant, you know, it'll be for a future project or a future program, whatever that may be. And so, you know, the network that you have has been invaluable, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get something locked in, even though it likely won't be for what we're looking at, you know, focusing on right now, and that being the Marathon Drive piece. You know, who's to say that there isn't going to be a need for other funding, and this will obviously help, you know, alleviate pressures on any of our internal, you know, resources, whether that be directly through the LDFA or through the city or some combination thereof. So it's all, you know, it's all not for naught is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, and I personally, I give the city a lot of credit for stepping out and being willing to commit to an action and funding. It's, you know, it's not a politically easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do, and I appreciate that. Regarding funding in other communities, we've looked at other communities. Oscoda, Grayling Township has received over $80 million, mostly from the feds. They're a different community. They got a much bigger problem, much bigger area. But they did receive money from Eagle, RRD, to connect at least 400 wells to pay for the connection costs. They received it's an Eagle grant of $6 million to pay for the connection costs. So there's a reason to try for this. It's not a closed door. I'm not saying that will be successful, but there's a template to follow. And then one other comment that the township supervisor from Grayling provided to me was, we need to develop an ask, but we need, as best as we can, to be not in conflict as a community on this issue. The communities that are most successful in reaching the most dollars for outside funding are the communities that are able to show to the outside world that they are working together. I think the great example of that in recent history, Marcus, is the work we did at Mitchell. We presented a united front. So I would just encourage all of us, whatever differences we have, those need to be secondary to looking for resources to provide clean drinking water. Those can be worked out in other days, other times. We need to focus on what we can agree on. So there's my that's my update. It's my personal views, but
If I could jump on board also with another slight update as we're looking at outside funding sources. I mentioned this at the city attorney mentioned it at the council meeting a week ago. There's a nationwide class action suit that's out there for local units of government that provide water in their communities to become a party to. I want to say it's like around a $13 billion suit. It's some really enormous number. The first phase of that is now closed, and they're moving into a second phase of accepting parties. One of the qualifiers is that you have to have a level of detection of PFAS in your municipal water system. Now, at the moment, we do not. We don't have any level of detection of PFAS within the municipal water system, but the rumor or the thought is that the suit's going to be amended or changed to where it'll then account for PFAS within groundwater, possibly within your municipality, even if you don't have PFAS within your municipal water supply. And so we are working on doing what we have to do as a local unit of government to essentially reserve our spot within that case. And so we're not a party yet, but that is something that we are looking at joining. There's then a calculation in terms of what type of dollars you would get, and then those dollars would have to be used to help provide, water or some type of assistance to those that are impacted by the contamination. So it's just another opportunity out there that's a little bit different, obviously, than applying for a grant, but still nonetheless another thing that we're pursuing. So.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Jeff?
Nope, I'm They stole all my thunder, so,
Sorry, Jeff.
no, that's fine. That's all right.
I think grant writing is extremely important. We have a disadvantaged community, and I think hookup cost is a huge stress for a lot of families. So I appreciate all the efforts, and if I can help in any way, I think it's the most important issue that we're facing, other than obviously clean water. So it's grant writing.
We're gonna need help from a number of people. There's no shortage of workers. Where there is a shortage of workers, there's and help.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Next is PFAS Advisory Committee, County, and I know that Julie's been talking about an advisory committee for months. I know that Brian and Jeff have been talking about it more recently. I don't care who wants to give the update on this, but
I'm gonna give you the update from the county perspective. We don't have a lot to do with the drinking water situation for townships, cities, in our county. We get that it is bigger than just those townships and counties. I would really like to see us use more of the health department. Not only is it our county, but they are involved with 10 counties. So why stop at just our county? Because we know it's all over the state. So I would really like to see more of the health department get involved. And Rob is here today. He's taken time out of his schedule to be here to try to answer questions. And Kevin and Max are also available quite often. So I would love to see them working with us a little more, especially with PFAS stuff.
thank you, Julie. Brian, you have anything to add to that, or?
No.
Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I do have something on this. As Julie said, and as Brian said earlier, this is beyond us. This is beyond the LDFA. We've got to be very cognizant of what we have inside the LDFA. We got to be very cognizant of what we're treating, how we're treating the PFAS. But this is beyond. This issue is not an LDFA issue currently. It could become one if it's in our NPDS, if our record of decision was changed. But currently, it's something we should be very well aware of and taking actions as we can. But we really can't affect outside of our area that much. And that's why I put down the county. I thought the county would be the natural leader in this. And I think our board here maybe should, go to the city council and say, hey, we got the seeds of a couple people who want to be on an advisory board for a global solution here, and kind of move this issue to where it needs to be with a different set of people that's what they're dealing with is the PFAS. We can deal with it inside our border. We can deal with it with what we treat, but we really can't affect outside our border a whole lot. And our border's quite narrowly defined. So I really think there needs to be a PFAS czar in Wexford County or whatever we call it that would be the head person. And I think maybe we start here with a couple volunteers that goes and say, let's get this ball rolling. But I think it's beyond LDFA. I don't think, LDFA we were designed and made for hexavalent chrome and VOCs. We may get PFAS. The feds may come in and say, this is yours too, but currently that's beyond what we're doing, and I think we're doing a wonderful job addressing it. I think we're doing a wonderful job tracking it, seeing what MPART's doing, but we really need more of a global assist, I guess, out there. And I think we have the people on the board. I think we have the people in the audience that's so interested in this that would be a wonderful thing. I think the LDFA has to be part of the advisory group because obviously we have issues inside the LDFA. There's PFAS there, but it's beyond us. It's you're going to find it, as Julie says, all over multiple counties. You're going to find it, and that's my 2 cents. Is just
I would also like to bring up that Susan and Mary have been working very hard on a local community advisory committee that I think have reached a lot of people. They've done a lot of hard work on that. And Brad Marine, I believe his last name is, just kind of joined that. And he is also working really good with that. So I would absolutely volunteer to be on any committee to help talk with the health department, their advisory committee, and this board at the same time. So anything to move us to helping people.
I definitely will try to meet Rob today and work with him. Thank you for being here, sir, and I definitely would like to be involved as well. And I know there's been other board members that have already committed to that, so I'm encouraged. I know there's a lot of names that have already been, they've already said, hey, I want to be part of this committee working with the Cadillac Advocates for Clean Water. So I just wanted to bring that topic up so we could discuss it a little bit. Strengthen numbers. So thank you for that. That brings us to public comments. Again, 3 minutes for each.
Hi, I am Mary Galvanic. I just wanted to tell you guys, I don't know if everybody knows all the stuff we've been doing, and I want you all to know. Actually, I was hoping to wake up early enough to like write something down and be able to give it up to you guys. But then my inbox was full of a bunch of people that needed help this morning because I took it off for the, taking it off for the Super Bowl means there's like 100 messages when you get back to your phone. So I didn't have anything to write, so I'm just going to tell you. Susan and I, Cadillac Advocates for Clean Water, it's really started to pick up some momentum. So GLPAN, which I've been calling GLPAN. Am I supposed to call them GLPAN? Okay. So we are meeting with them on Friday and bringing together some awesome leaders to meet with them, hoping to hear some personal stories from the community. They promised me physician kits for PFAS, which I didn't even know was a thing because I've been just getting these case boxes full of all these random papers and trying to figure them out and hand them out. And that was less awesome than what they're bringing to us, which will be a physician kit for PFAS, which will handle some of like the codes, because a lot of physicians have been saying, we can't test your blood for that, we can't test your blood. That's actually not true, but there needs to be a reason why you're testing the blood for the PFAS. You can't just say, hey, I want a PFAS blood test because I live in Cadillac. There has to be like another problem that you're dealing with in order to get that written under the insurance. So a lot of doctors here don't know that. We're kind of trying to just unroll that situation so people and doctors can work together a little better. We need to get them heat maps. I don't know if that's something the LDFA can pay for printing to get like heat maps out to the physicians. That's not something I can get GLPAN or Eagle to do, but there are physicians requesting heat maps because, as you can imagine, if their patient comes in from, everybody's heard Marathon, but not everybody's heard Arthur Street or the other one that starts with A that just popped up in my messages. And so even I don't remember all the streets. So the doctors need to know that, and that would be really awesome to have help with that. I'm also talking, Joseph Fox just reached out to me last night. He's coming up here to meet with me in person on Wednesday. Just sitting with just me and Joseph Fox, I don't feel like I can get as much done if, say, I heard from our community that Art Stevens or Brian would be a very good person to meet with Joseph and I. He's not sure when he'll get up here on Thursday because he has like a meeting in Lansing and then he's driving up. So I thought that was nice of him to come up and meet up. I'm just saying yes to all the meetings. So also Owen and Jeff are meeting with Susan and I this week just so we can download a bunch of information that we have onto them. Also, tons of community members, just linking them up with Owen and I are getting help to Phyllis, who is the little white house that lives across the street from Borg Warner today, and she has lack of mobility and things. She needs a little extra help. We're going to get her tested together for the lead pipe situation. And it just, you know, we're meeting with the township as well. We're meeting with Eagle as well. We've got GLPAN and Eagle wanting to come together and do a town hall for everybody. And so bringing together the township and GLPAN and Eagle and the physicians and, you know, just being able to work together with everyone who seems to have minor conflicts in some of those areas and just squash that bug and let's just get at least one person in this community who talks to everyone. And between Susan and I are very different, but we work really well together. So if they like the sassy side, send them to Mary. If they like the calm, sweet side, send them to Susan. And so we really do work well together in all of the different personalities that we're going to come into contact with. Let's see, Citizen Action Committee, yes, yes, and yes, triple yes. I have probably a list of 20 people that would be loving to be on this, so more than you need. And if there's anything I can do to help you guys, or any contacts that you think that I may have that you would like to have when it comes to the different things in the schools that were kind of popping into my inbox, and I know you and Susan were talking about those. I'm sure those are just things that we want to squash together real quick, and I know we can. And, together we are better. And that's been my thing since the beginning. We are better together. We have to have good energy, and we have to have compassion for each other. We have to have hard work and follow through. And I know you're going to get that out of me and Susan and Bill and a lot of other people in this beautiful town. So, yeah, if there's anything I can ever do to help. And then there's the town hall, but there's also going to be a water. The farmer's market's going to make it fun. So we're going to bring water activities that bring life jackets and water safety gear to the children, while also bringing education to the parents on PFAS through EAGLE and GLPAN. So I'm going to have local teachers watching the kids, right? So the parents can actually have a conversation with some people about the things they want to talk about. And that is going to happen at the city park. Owen and I have figured out a date. It will be after the kids get out of school, so everybody can come. And I think that's it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mary, for that 5 minutes. Being you're an organization, I gave you 5 minutes. Anyone else? We still have quorum. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for your service and your appointment. Folks, I'd like you to pass a resolution. Actually, I'd like you to take over this whole PFAS thing from the city council, and you folks manage it. You're working well together. There's not a division here. Appreciate what you're doing, but I think the whole thing should be shifted over to your board and let you folks have expanded duties that are for the city. That would make a lot of sense to do that. No PFAS is good for anyone. It's not healthy. Zero. And we're looking at these charts. They're incredible. I would ask, again, that you pass a resolution to test all wells. We are, since May of 2024, not a new Superfund attorney, not a new Superfund consultant, not a new director, which I think you should hire one, have the city pay for that, and pay for the new director. No one city employee, Mr. Dietland or anybody, can handle this. He needs help, and it would give an independent person more time to work on this. I'm now hearing 90% of the wells have PFAS in it, not 80. We need that PFAS expert. That could be the new director. That should be paid from city funds. They have a part of this problem. And now 60% of the wells, thank you for testing those wells in the LDFA. 5 years late. This should have happened in 2020. Bad advice was given to this board. The staff hasn't, that I know of, tested one resident's well. City, you guys have, and thank you for doing that. But the blocked access for the EPA in 2020, the 2021 and 22 reports that had PFAS in the industrial park that weren't released, stopping testing for 3 years. There's been a bad group of things that have happened here, and they're just stopping. The city just tried to explain everything that's happened to us and left out 6 years and told us we're leaving out 6 years. We need to know what happened in those 6 years. We need the minutes to be online through 2008. Something happened with this 2018 ordinance. Nothing's been explained as to that. I'm so happy to hear GLPAN is getting involved and that Mary and Susan are getting private donor tests. They're doing that because the city hasn't done their job and they needed to step up and hadn't. And I appreciate those private volunteers. They're doing the job of the city council. So think about it. 90% of our private wells have a detect for PFAS. There's 223 of those out there. They all need to be tested. I just want to thank you for listening to me. That council didn't listen. I told them all summer Anderson had a hot well and they didn't do anything. You folks have listened. I would ask you to test over by the Clam River. That's the dumping grounds for the LDFA. No one's tested over there. Kevin Foster's well, still not tested. He's ground zero. Can this board facilitate that test? The city board, by the way, city council does not direct Mr. Petcha, Mr. Dietland. Mr. Petcha does. So to say he's waiting for the city council to tell him to do something, wrong. That's the city manager's job. You have Marathon going well, and I want to thank the city for moving quickly on that. Mary Street sits out there, Seneca, Houston, West Division, Arthur Street, Leeson Street. These are just some of them that are also going to need the same things. And PFAS does not stop at the LDFA border. That's insane. It does not stop in your square. It's gone outside somewhere. And the EPA is going to be the one to tell you folks what to do. You're not going to be able to say you're going to walk away from it. It's up to the federal government. They have a record of decision on you from '89, and they can add that. In fact, all contaminants were considered. And this is a contaminant. So I would ask that you keep working well together, doing what you're doing. I think you still have a quorum here. And
We do.
thanks for appointing people to serve on this.
We do. Thank you, Bill, for your thoughts. Anyone else? Okay, next up, Ms. Brown had to step up. She had a hard stop at 1 o'clock, so we still have quorum. It might be more helpful in the future if all board members could sit up here. Marcus, I don't know if you could sit up here in the future, that would help us.
So there's only 9, I believe there's only 9 spots. That's why
Okay, well, when we get to
Two
that
are
point.
given, they're not gonna be
Yeah,
here,
when we get up
so-
to 9, you're welcome to sit over there, Mike.
Thank you.
Can we also reflect in the minutes any and all times that members leave the room? And then when they re-enter, we can add it in the minutes that they're back?
That's, and
If you
obviously.
need a motion for that, I'd gladly make that motion.
I support that.
It's gonna happen.
Can we quickly vote on that, Caitlin?
Brian,
Yes.
Marcus,
Sure, yes.
Hamner, William,
Yes.
Jennifer, Julie,
Yes.
Caitlin, Emily, Matthew,
Yes.
Mike Solomon.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to committee's response to public comments. I have some things to say, but I want to open it up for other board members if they have any replies to Ms. Galvanic or Mr. Barnett.
Just thank all of the members of the public for being here. That's a lot of time folks are spending, and if there's a meeting with a state rep, especially a local state rep that serves this community, if I was invited, I would be happy to attend as part of they're an important part of the solution.
As far as Mary, I appreciate what you're doing, Mary and Susan. Obviously, I know Susan. I am a member of GL PAN, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing to get people to volunteer and to provide assets for testing, because there's so many disadvantaged families. I used to be one of them in my day. We've all had those days where we've been week to week trying to afford things, and that kind of stress pushes people to places where we don't want them to be. So I appreciate everything that you do. GL PAN, just a quick plug, they do have monthly meetings every third Tuesday of every month at 5:30. The co-chair, Sandy Wynn, and Erica Bloom, we had a meeting with them last week, and they're also coming, Sandy's coming into town on Friday. So I'm very thankful for people that have a lot of experience, like the people in Grayling that are helping Brian and trying to increase our understanding of what's going on. They've already made the mistakes, and they've already did the things that are successful, so we can learn a lot from them. As far as Mr. Barnett, you said a lot of stuff, my friend. A lot of those things we can't do too much in the LDFA. They're council issues. But I will tell you that within my household, the topic of clean water is a 24/7 topic. It's probably too much, to the point that my 12-year-old daughter is asking me when this is going to be over. I do know firsthand the effects of not having clean water. My 12-year-old did live on Arthur Street with 18 POS. I have 2 parents that passed away with Parkinson's. Whether that is or is not due to the water issues, that remains to be seen. But I think each of us have a story. Not that it makes me vindictive, it makes me want to help people. It makes me want to be invested, and it gives me focus. So I think together there's strength in numbers and that we can help each other. So this topic is being discussed. I try to be in every single meeting as much as I can, and I do plan on joining COG as well, which is an Eagle-based group like GLPAN. So thank you for your comments, Bill.
I have another quick thing to add real quick. Mary, if at some point you could get out information for people, I know you're very good on Facebook, Susan as well, very good on Facebook. Some of my people don't do computer stuff. So if you could get out a phone number, address.
For us?
Yeah, so people could contact you that don't have a computer. I mean, I've had people that reached out to me, and the questions that I had, I just passed along, but the response, but if you could get that information out to the public, that'd be wonderful, because not everybody has a computer, so.
Yeah, and maybe we could link up with our partners with like the Cadillac News. That would be a great way to get out the Cadillac advocates of clean water information. We could definitely, my phone number is the Cadillac Farmers Market phone number. It's been public for years, so you can go ahead and give that to anybody. But
Maybe
yeah,
even
maybe
giving it
email
at public comment, that might be even helpful. So when people are watching it at home, they have a number that you've just rattled off and freely gave that they can call.
Yeah, definitely, anytime.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Last thing on the agenda, deep breath. Committee comments. I do have a couple little side notes here. Filter knowledge update. I know Brian's been working with Eagle, and I was in that meeting as well. Do you have anything you want to quickly share about that?
If you're offered a filter, please take it. Please use it. It's effective. It's not perfect. There's very few things in life that are, but please, it will help reduce your risks. We had a good conversation with Eagle and the Department of Health staff. I've had a number of questions, and again, please utilize please utilize the filters.
Okay, and delegation of urgent concerns and establishing subcommittees and leads. So we have obviously a lot of activities that we need to get completed in a timely fashion. So over the next month, I'll be sending out an email to the board members looking for volunteers to maybe be subcommittee leads or to be topic experts so we can get it through all this workload. Things like ongoing bylaw compliance, long-term bylaw adjustments, POA correlation, because we're seeing a lot of PFOA correlation, water filter review and cleanup technologies, which Brian has been working on, accessing the 400K fund, which I know Mr. Tenza has been working on, new business opportunities and increasing tax increment financing, grant writing resources, and maybe looking at our action item compliance to make sure that we're getting things achieved, overseeing the reduction of our 180 utility cost, and I know, Brian, you're working on that. Just little things like reviewing board delegation and regular report distribution and who's going to take care of the RFQ for the consultant. All these things that we have to get done. If we can just get people to be experts, we can start. I mean, look at what Mr. Tenz has been doing the last month and what you've been doing, Julie. I mean, on your own, I know that you guys are in meetings weekly, if not daily, trying to do things. And I haven't been able to touch base because he hasn't been part of the board, Mr. Solomon, my dear neighbor from back in the day. So just with that, does anybody else have any more comments that they'd like to?
I do. I also was gonna ask about Kevin's water being tested. My fear in that not being tested is knowing that it's up for sale. Do we have a protocol for if that sells, for testing that for the new person coming into it?
We have no protocol. My understanding is that the well is not operational, that there's no electricity to it. If there was electricity to it, I'm sure MPART would have tested it, but there's I don't know how you test it. You put a little pump down. I'm not a sampling expert, so I don't know how you'd sample a well that is not, that's not operational, whether it's due to mechanical or just power. But that's my understanding.
I believe Kevin has given permission, correct?
Hi- Is that to me, that question?
Yes.
Oh, yes, he has given us permission. But again, he did inform us he had no power. So again, that's the sticking point is how do you do that? I don't know if the house was winterized. I don't know what the pipes are like inside. If we somehow got power there, if it would just flood the house, we don't know, and then we'd have to undo the power too. So it's, it's an issue.
I'll see if I can't facilitate that a little more. I'll reach out once again to him and maybe the powers that be close by there that we'll see what we can do from there.
Yep.
My next
Just,
committee.
I have to be really careful about having this open dialogue, but I really would like to hear your thoughts because this is important.
Kevin has let me know that he would let me pay for the $79 PFA test, and that he can get a generator over there to turn the water on.
Okay, thank you for your input.
I'm glad that Rob has come today. I really think he's gonna be an asset to our involvement in the PFAS and growing that understanding. The other thing is, I, again, think that there's a few different loans out there for the connections, and I had this wrote down before we got into that discussion. So I will make sure I reach out. So if anybody else hears of any loans or programs out there, Rob, please let me know so I can dig into those a little more. And I'm done, thanks.
Brian? Anything else, Brian?
Right.
No? Bill?
No, sir.
Mike? No. Okay. It's nice to have you aboard, sir.
Thank you.
Look forward to getting involved with all this fun stuff with you. I guess I only have one thing. I'm new on the board over the last 4 months, and I'm trying to understand the process of meeting minutes. So maybe Jeff or Marcus or Caitlin who reviews the meeting minutes before they're published? I'm just curious.
It should have been me. I was stuck doing other issues for the last month.
I was just
So
curious if you're the only entity you're the only person that reviews
I'm.
them, or
It could be me and Marcus. It's got to be people that were here, obviously. So it can't be. I can't have other staff do it that's not present, because obviously they wouldn't know what was said. So.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a long meeting, but I think we have a lot to go on. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Next meeting date, just to confirm with you guys. If you guys could set it, I think it's already set, but I want to confirm it. So.
I'm not aware of that set meeting date. If you could tell us what that's going to be, that would be wonderful.
I thought it was the second Wednesday, Marcus, wasn't it? First Wednesday?
I think it was the second. That was what we were looking at, but we had to adjust based on people's availability and then holidays and whatnot. But we were looking at, I thought, the second Wednesday at 11.
So the 12th
12.
at 11?
Yep.
If that's the second Wednesday.
Yep.
That works for me. Anybody else?
Yeah, just a comment on meeting dates. If we could establish a regular meeting date, then they could all be posted for the year and not each meeting be a special meeting. I would like to move in that direction, but I don't know the availability of other board members.
I would
I think
agree.
that's been an ongoing
I think
issue
it's a
that we're trying to
problem.
work through.
We have a few board members that have such tight schedules that they can't commit to a yearly schedule. So I think short term, I think we want to get there. And I think it would be better for me to put monthly buckets together with what activities need to be implemented in each one of those monthly meetings so we don't forget some things that we've forgotten in the past. And I think that is something we want to get to eventually. And I can start working on that. action item for myself. Okay, with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Do we have support to adjourn?
Support.
We can all in favor of that one.
In favor?
Yeah.
All in favor. Aye.
Brian,
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Mike Hamner, William,
Yes.
Jennifer, Julie,
Yes.
Caitlin, Emily, Matthew,
Yes.
Mike Solomon.
Yes.